Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. Palantir Management reveals AIP is way better than expected and they got numbers to prove it. And we've got plenty of other news like awards, interviews, lawsuits, and much, much more. So looking at the stock first very briefly here for a second, we closed out the week above $20, and on Friday we were up around 6% for the week after testing some support in the 19s. But more importantly, lots of news that happened this week, so let's just get into it here. So first, we had a new AIP demo showcased by Palantir architect Chad. So check it out. It's a 30-minute demonstration, but it's the best way to briefly describe it is that he showed the end product result first like a cooking show, but circled back and showed all the steps along the way, and he highlighted setting up virtual tables connected to BigQuery, and then also the pipeline builder here functionality that he wanted to note makes it so much more scalable as a solution so you can connect more data sources together over time as well as batching these. And he also wanted to demonstrate, per the title, the importance of text embedding that helps in semantic search, which is for artificial intelligence more powerful than just keyword search because you're trying to understand the meaning of the data and not necessarily just ensuring keywords are present, all while building out the ontology object and finally incorporating all these into the finished product on AIP logic that uses that. So it's a great demo for those who want to get more transparency into the AIP product and how it works. Now next, we have another interesting article come out here from NASDAQ, just noting that the average one-year price target for Palantir from Analyst has risen by almost 9% in just a month. So the reason I wanted to point this out is because earnings came out at the beginning of November, and then honestly, in my opinion, is the biggest catalyst or driver of these price target changes for the analysts. Now, I'm not saying anyone should be beholden to the analyst price targets and do that for themselves, but it's still a cool data point here to look at, especially as we've seen this increase in interest in the stock right after earnings. And then upcoming next week, Palantir is a finalist to win an Energy Industry Award for the 2023 Platts Global Energy Award in New York on December 7th. So they're still waiting amongst several others if they'll be announced as the winner. But the specific category that they're in line for is the Energy Transition Technology of the Year Award. And I think it's nice already that they've even been considered and can point to this already for marketing. But obviously a win would be huge here and a cooler point to show clients, especially in the oil, gas, energy, or even just any client that may care about their footprint, since Palantir has platforms heavily involved in measuring carbon performance and their close work with BP. Then our first media appearance, we've got Gene Munster from Deepwater Asset Management, LLC. The interesting story here, though, is that when asked about certain artificial intelligence tech names he likes, he brought up Palantir. And now, just looking at his firm's latest 13F filings, though, we did see that they sold around 50% of their Palantir, albeit it was a small amount for an institution, around 40,000 shares, and he sold around 22,000, leaving only about 18,000 left. So remember, 13Fs, though, just show the holdings as of the end of September right now, and we know earnings took place after this holding period and could have changed the perspective of Gene. So we'll keep an eye out for his firm's change in holdings next quarter's filing. And even if the NHS FTP contract has been awarded, we are still hearing murmurings in Parliament about the deal and trying to question Rishi Sunak on it. He basically stood up for the platform and is saying that this is good for patients and reducing wait lists, and he points that out in his response to a question about NHS Scotland keeping their data out of the FTP. So it won't be surprising to see more pushes, though, to get that connected to the FTP over time and seeing if more questions will come about of this. Now, we also got a Guardian article, too, who pointed out lawsuits may be incoming to NHS England here, which, of course, indirectly can be seen as an attack on Palantir. Their premise is essentially they are worried about data being stolen and being accessed by a spy company, Peter Thiel, Trump-loving company, which obviously is the opposite of the premise of the FTP. NHS England essentially said they don't know what they're talking about and why would they bring up a lawsuit anyways. If you understand the purpose of the FTP project, it's tying data together and Palantir is running that infrastructure to do so. And it doesn't make money off being a data broker here or gathering data or selling it. There's really no point in it. They make money from having a solution that actually helps their clients analyze their data and actually finds it useful there. So keeping an eye out, though, I still won't be surprised if they still proceed with any legal action anyways. And on the German side too, it's been a bit quiet, but we essentially left off at the Federal Ministry of the Interior rejecting Palantir for federal police forces and cooperation amongst the states. And now we get an update that in the Bavarian state, who has been an ally to Palantir, honestly, they're questioning if testing is even legal for them because of that catch-22 of you can't test real data because then it'll find real crimes to investigate, but it won't be legal to investigate because it's not legal yet to use that testing software. So it's kind of a funny way to think about it, but I guess when it comes to law, you do have to be precise there. So we'll see if one of Palantir's few allies in Germany runs into roadblocks some more, and if they're able to continue running their tests on their own, because the extent of this issue before was just not allowing Palantir and the Vera platform to be used across Germany, but keeping the actual states who've been using it and actually want to, that's a whole different story here, and of course that would hurt much more. But now, even though that might be on the chopping block, if a legal basis is not clarified here, we'll just have to see how this plays out. And then we got more media appearances here. So first with Alina Svitolina, the Ukrainian tennis player sponsored by Palantir. She visited their London office to share her life in Ukraine alongside what her foundation does. And it's always great to see them moving on all fronts in regards to marketing and getting their name out there through different avenues and much more relatable like sports. And then we've also got the Reagan National Defense Forum announced with Palantir's participation. So Karp has spoken before and definitely not surprised he'll be speaking again with the acceleration of more geopolitical events. And I'll keep an eye out though for when it is released on the Reagan Foundation's YouTube channel. And then Shyam also had an interview there with CNBC, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then we've got more mainstream media showing off Palantir on Fox Business, having Keith Fitzgerald, a Palantir bull, come on the show. So he was asked point blank if he's selling Palantir at the $20 resistance point, and he's like, no, and actually says he wants to buy more. Now, at these levels, it didn't specify that he confirmed that he wants to buy at these levels, obviously, but went into how the long-term investing strategy really just wants you to hold on to winners, even if you're experiencing volatility like now. Now, if you want to buy more and there are opportunities to do so, why not? Especially if you like the company and its moat for the long term. So we'll see if this plays out well in his favor. And then the biggest news, I think, Amazon Q was announced by their AWS CEO and touted the same talking points essentially that Palantir has been bringing up, because it's not only in Palantir's product development bloodline, but also it's what enterprise cares about when trying to use AI. So Amazon Q is specifically a chatbot. And like I said, some talking points is Palantir with security, guardrails, privacy, and just ensuring your data is for the usages only and not shared or even used to train Amazon models. Now, the big differentiator here is to be determined is if the low barrier to entry, especially for AWS clients, will be enough to at least make customers think twice about Palantir, since they have that invasive reputation here and probably just much harder to integrate. But also, the value from Palantir is that the ontology and getting a true understanding of your data, whereas we don't know exactly the level of Amazon's ability to do the same. But they did bring up connectors at least, so you can use your other products with Amazon Q and utilize your questions on those specific data sets here, and it's particular to your company, even if it's not hosted on AWS. So it's more to see on how this all plays out. In the end, we'll have to make note if the actual ontology will outplay here against Amazon Q's just connection of data. And then coincidentally or intentionally, Palantir also released a blog post on their Apollo BTS or binary transfer service. They use Amazon's delivery process in Mackinac. I think I'm saying that right now after a few comments, and that's an island in Michigan. And it's kind of the old process or manual process governments use, like burning software deployments onto a DVD and manually delivering it there. They were just trying to draw that connection here. And they basically used that comparison for their own Apollo hub spoke architecture in their product and their Apollo hub remote. And essentially you can read the article there. It's a little bit detailed, but it's more information on how Palantir can deliver safe and secure software deployment, especially when you have clients that are dealing with these kind of weird one-offs or disconnected systems. And then one item I didn't cover already in a previous video is that Dan Ives has also made the rounds with YouTubers this week. He was a guest on Tom Nash's channel and Amit's. So I'm not going to steal their thunder there, so feel free to check those out at your own time and the talks there. Just wanted to make you all aware that it's out there. Now, the biggest news of all, and we finally got here, I haven't covered yet, Shyam's interview with CNBC right outside that Reagan National Defense Forum. So right off the bat, they confirmed Palantir is helping Israel. He literally said he came from Tel Aviv before getting to the RNDF, and then talking about the demand for defense software just making decisions much quicker is needed all around the world in different conflicts. And he even hints at the Pacific theater, which we don't hear about too much here publicly. And that probably means the conflict with China and Taiwan, and then maybe helping out our allies with Japan and the Philippines, all in that China Sea area. But that's just my speculation. They are not confirmed. And among the coalition environment too, among everything between supply chains, combatants, civilians, everything has to be taken into account, and that's what Palantir is learning on the field right now. And they transitioned to government to commercial, and they talked about their monetization strategy and brought up the biggest part here, AIP boot camps with expectations that they'd sign around 140 orgs in November. But shockingly, he reveals they did 200 organizations instead, and that they're on track for 325 by end of year. And this is commercial here in their main focus. And he also said they'll be bringing this to the government side for the US at least, and using these boot camps as well. So it'll be interesting to see if this is going to boost their numbers also on the government side as well as commercial. And then they finally talk about Palantir Government Web Services, which I've covered a little bit on here, but know that the broader media really hasn't. And I know it gets kind of into the weeds there with the different blog posts about it, but it's nice for them to bring it up here publicly and have other investors finally know about this and potential customers. But essentially, these are tools to help bring more performance to customers and make it easier for them. And then they finally close out on the S&P inclusion, and Shyam gives the reasonable answer, of course, he's in management, that even though they're eligible, there's no point setting up expectations on timing, but rather the meaning of a true defense company actually getting included after decades since the primes. And this is a much more powerful statement, and he hopefully wants to see much more defense companies come in right after them. So super busy week here. I know I covered a lot, but glad you stuck through with it. So let me know your thoughts though below on all the news, and I'll see you in the next video.